This week's episode is brought to you once again by the Dark Irregulars. A clan full of vampires and succubi, Dark Irregulars is all about soul charging a bunch and then getting bonuses off of those soul charges. But it's also about FTKing the opponent thanks to No Life King Death Anchor. Dark Irregulars. It's kind of a poop joke if you really think about it. Hey everybody, welcome to Nexus at Night. There is a lost recording somewhere of just me talking in dead air because I hit the wrong record button. I'm Atlas.
And I'm Matt. It's not lost at all.
Yeah, I'm Root Beer. You're sure the record button is on this time?
Yes, it is on this time.
I am Maxime from the Solemn Vanguard channel.
Hello. Welcome to the podcast on a less popular channel than you. So... today we're talking about Premium DI, which seems pretty fitting because Mr. Solemn here. What did you do with it?
I won BCS Nancy, so France, in Premium.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what were your matchups going in?
Right. So I first had two non-players because I had the buy card. Which I had won with, I believe, Grand Blue. And so then third round was Blasters, really nice guy. He rushed me because obviously he assumed I played the regular NLK variant, which you can rush and win, especially with Blasters. So then he rushed me, he gave me the damage, and then as the deck, my variant can literally loop the second you ride grade 3, I just did the loop and won because I had so much counterblast to work with. Then we had the fourth round, which was, I believe, Gredora Geese. So he got to Gredora before I got to No Life King, which was pretty sad for me. So he locked out one of the rows, which meant that I couldn't really do the big-ass loop because I couldn't swing with two Assassins. And then with Vanguard, I could only swing with Assassin, boosted by Assassin, and then Vanguard. So that meant I only had half a loop. I used only 2 counterblast for the tiny loop, and then I could have swung a third time with Vanguard, but the problem is that I assumed he was keeping a heal to G-guard that last one, and so the next turn he could Optyrandus me, meaning I would just lose the game, literally. So instead of doing that, I passed turn, kept my Assassins in Soul, NLK still standing, and that way he couldn't actually swing at my Assassins, but... He also couldn't G-guard, which meant he had to go into Overwhelm and swing at me because he had no hand left whatsoever. So he swung at me, I took the damage, and then next turn I finished my loop and won that way. Then the next round I played against Link Joker Geese. I was extremely afraid because obviously, if Link Joker can use Globulo, the one that calls without her... Yeah, that one. And then Mulepton. And Lacus Carina too. So basically that deck was supposed to beat me. I think it was a really smart meta pick from him to be playing Link Joker Geese because Link Joker doesn't really have a finisher. But if you play Geese, you don't need one. And you can still counter so much stuff in the meta apart from Anj. But so he didn't get to grade 3. He rode 2, I rode 3, and then I just did the loop and won. I think it was only with 1 or 2 counterblast, but that's enough because it's Geese, meaning they can't take defensive triggers. So your endless army of assassins finished them off because it was a 20k to a 9k. And Link Joker doesn't have new triggers either. So they don't have 15k guard. Their triggers have 10k guard, meaning every single assassin swing is 2 cards from hand. So he was at 2 only, and I just did my loop with 1 or 2 damage, and that was enough. Then the next round was an NLK mirror. But he played generic NLK, and I played a faster one. It was actually built for that. I was assuming that I would be going into a tournament full of NLK, where I would literally just always be the faster NLK and win that way. And so I only played 2 NLK mirrors, actually, that entire tournament. But so just like I had built a deck, I rode and I won the game on my loop. Then the final round of Swiss, round 7, I was going 6-0, and I was at table 1. So I was already sure I'd be in top 8, meaning instead of actually playing out a game and that way giving information to my opponent, I just scooped before riding, meaning he didn't get the information that I was playing a very fast build. And then apart from that, since my build is so fast, no one had seen me playing apart from my opponents, meaning literally no one had information about the deck and how it worked. So the scoop actually ended up really paying off because I saw this person again in top 8 and beat him because he didn't have the info, so he didn't know there was some kind of counterplay. So then top 8, I go up against Spikes, really nice guy as well. He rushed me because, again, generic NLK can be rushed by both blasters and spikes and ripples. But so because he rushed me, I had the damage to then do my loop when I rode and I won. Then I met the guy who I spoke of round 7 in Swiss. I'm in top 4. That was also Spike. And so he didn't completely do a rush, but he did like half a one. I think he passed turn on grade 1, but then started rushing on grade 2 for some reason. And so he did that, gave me the damage. I did half a loop. And then I passed turn again with Assassins in Soul, so he can't swing at them. So he has to swing at me, give me that damage. And then I did another half a loop and won. Then finally, the finals was another NLK mirror, where I was just the faster NLK and then won the tournament.
The fastest NLK in the West.
And so when you say faster NLK, what did you do to make the deck faster? A lot of people have seen like the list prior to the slower NLK decks. What did you add that were making the deck faster?
Right. So the basic build idea behind regular NLK is that they play their game very conservatively, and then they stride once, which turns on all kinds of cards like Bobo, like the cat, meaning they can spend a lot of counterblast on soul charging and then get that counterblast back with the cat anyway, so it doesn't matter. And they can also G-guard to soul charge like with Bat Malat. Now the thing is, that means they always have to either G-guard or stride before doing their loop, meaning if I can loop when I just ride grade 3, I will always be one turn ahead. I will always loop one turn before any other NLK deck can. So I added Yellow Bolt, who can essentially soul charge 3 by himself if you see him on turn 1. He can soul charge 2 by himself if you see him on turn 2. And if you see him on just your regular turn, your turn 3, he soul charges 1 as well, because essentially you rest him and soul charge 1. So at that point, if you see him that late, he soul charges just as much as a Prisoner Beast. But if you see him any earlier, he soul charges much more. So him by himself already speeds up the deck a lot. But then apart from that, I also run 4 Tragic Claw, which not every list runs, but I think every list should run. I know Kevin Cho, who won BCS Anaheim, runs it, and that's good on him because he really should. But that really speeds stuff up because you can call like Hysteric Shirley behind him, Soul Charge from him, Soul Charge with Shirley. Then you can call a Spirit Inviter behind him, Soul Charge from him, Soul Charge with Spirit Inviter, and so forth. And so yeah, I also run Spirit Inviter, the draw, who goes into Soul, because essentially I run 12 draws, meaning I see my pieces much easier. And so that means that every single piece in the deck already turns into a soul. Like apart from Creeper or something odd like that, every single card goes to soul, meaning every draw I get is actually an extra piece into soul, meaning hitting 13 is very easy, especially with Yellow Bolt already creating 3 cards by himself if you see him that fast or 2. So all those things compounded essentially make it so you will have your 13 soul or even more the second you ride 3, meaning you can then do your loop. And you don't even need like every assassin at that point. You can easily have 1 or 2 and start looping, because once you start looping, you charge so much already because you are charging from your field, you are rewriting NLK, which is 1 charge, and then you also have your drive checks, meaning you have even more opportunity to put Assassin into Soul. And since you run 12 draws, most of your drive checks will have a draw, meaning you have 1 more chance on top of that to see the Assassin. So like you start a loop with even 1 Assassin in Soul, sometimes 2, and you will probably get the entire loop off. Apart from that, if you only have 2 Assassins in Soul, but you have 3 Counterblast, that is the maximum amount of Assassins you need to use up all your Counterblast to do your loop. So often 3 Counterblast and 2 Assassins is enough. So that's basically how it's faster, and that's the idea behind the deck.
Did you ever have did you ever come close to deck out?
No, because if you like, I know this was actually an issue when I started playing normal NLK, thinking I was going to play that. Since you only do it after striding and G-guarding once, that means you have had 3 extra drive checks. Since you run draws, that's like 4 extra cards. You did bottom a lot, which is 2 more than your draw for turn. So like you easily go through like 7 or 10 extra cards overall just by taking the damage because you give them an extra turn as well. And so many things just compounded, meaning deck out was a real issue, meaning you had to run the Serpent Charmer or the Sullivan backup into Tybolt and stuff like that. Whereas if you do it when you ride, you will not deck out. It just doesn't happen.
So, Yellow Bolt was kind of the card that was made kind of a bit more expensive, I believe. Like
It's
before
$14 now.
Yeah, $14 player as of December 8th, 2018, and like it before. Like I know I have a bunch of this card somewhere in some box. I just don't feel like digging it out. But or it's gonna take too long to find it, and it's just not worth the time to me. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, makes sense.
It skill also works on Vanguard. Has that ever come up where you might use the skill, you might ride it and then like use it on Vanguard? Maybe I guess it's like useful on turn 1, so you can generate that extra soul, or perhaps.
Right. So if you see it on turn 1, you use the skill. Obviously, if you had to ride it, it's actually pretty sad if you had to ride it because that means if you had some other grade 1, that would have meant you had 3 soul charge. Whereas if you see it on turn 1, it's only 1. Regardless, if you see it, so you ride it, you soul charge. That's great. But then on turn 2. You sometimes want to do as well, for example, in the Ange or the Luard matchup, because you don't want to give them the counterblast to do the Ange 12 play, like where they immediately ride so they can stride on your grade 2. And then also against Luard, you don't want to give them the counterblast to use Blaster Dark against you. So against Luard, you would literally call something random on the field beyond the Yellow Bolt to then not give them the twin drive, because maybe they can then destroy you in a rush or something with the main and the Blaster Darks and all that kind of stuff. So even on turn 2, you will sometimes use his rest skill on V, which is really nice.
Nice.
Another deck that can actually destroy you that way, just like Ange Twa, is the Cruel Dragon play. I don't know if you saw that, but in Japan, or at least the Japanese metagame, you had this Kagero deck using Cruel Dragon, which is also a quick ride. But in order to be able to use that, they need to retire, and all their retire is tied up behind the counterblast, I think. But then the Cruel Dragon is also tied up behind the counterblast. I'm not sure how it worked, but essentially they need to 1 counterblast. So what you do is you just use the Yellow Bolt to not swing, and you also don't call anything, meaning if you didn't call anything, they can't retire anything, meaning they can't do the quick ride.
Right.
Cruel Dragon, the original or the V version? Or
the original?
The original. The new one does not write itself. The new one calls itself.
Oh. Reveal this card, choose your grade 2 or greater Kagero Vanguard rested. During your main phase, your opponent's radar is put into the drop zone. Ride this card as stand, choose your Vanguard, gets plus 3k.
Minus 3k.
Oh, minus 3k. Sorry.
Yeah, but then you also have to limit break bullshit. So, like, it doesn't come up that often, I guess. But it's still a cheesy thing that I kept in mind just in case.
Seems very Ezreal-esque.
Yes, but less good.
Yep. I was looking to do it faster and freer.
Yep.
Do you think that Enigmatic Assassin needs to get hit?
Yes, it should be hit to 1 or 0. I see people going, oh, like 2 is fine, it doesn't kill the deck. And I'm like, yes, it doesn't kill the deck, it actually keeps it just as good. Well, not just as good, but good enough to a point where it's still oppressive, yeah. So, like, because if you, like I said, if you only have 2 assassin, that means you can still do a loop with 3 counterblasts, which finishes off literally every deck apart from Ange, because Ange can use like the Aqua PG, which is 6 PGs, and they also have Ellie, which is gigantic together with Sandy. So like Ange can survive half a loop where you use 2 enigmatics and 3 counterblasts, but any other deck literally can't. So I don't think putting it to 2 really does much.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm definitely of the opinion. I know Bushi doesn't ban cards, but I think if I were in control and I just didn't care what Bushi thought, I would probably ban it, just because I think it's had a good run. But I can definitely see
very good run. Yeah.
We had a good run, buddy. It's time for you to go.
I really wish they could just ban it before Worlds, but alas.
I'm guessing that they needed to kind of illustrate the point. I mean, in California, what was it, 5 or 6 of 8 of the top 8?
I think 5, but you said 6. So.
Yeah, I was told 6 from someone, from someone at the event. So I
guess we can see it on Facebook on their page, but it would take a while.
Regardless, it's clearly oppressive.
Yeah, and I believe all three of the top 3 were the NLK deck as well.
That one I can check up
true.
on real quick. That one, okay. Block A was not. Block B was also not. Murakumo. OTT. Weird.
Look for premium.
Oh, right, for premium. I clicked on the wrong thing. DI. All 3.
Yep. Also pretty funny, Mexico was won by DI, and the deck name of the guy is pretty funny if you check it out.
Let's see, Mexico. It was No Soy Solemn Vanguard. Good job. Let's see. He didn't do the yellow bolt stuff. I'm not sure if this was after your win.
It was 1 week after Nancy, but yeah, he didn't do yellow bolt. He played regular. Oh, I'm currently on the Cardfight Vanguard Facebook, and it was 5 dark regulars in the.
It was 5. Oh, my apologies.
Yeah.
Still.
No, it's fine. So.
Still a lot.
Yeah, way too much.
Now, assuming Assassin gets hit here, do you think the deck can still do stuff, or?
I think the I will still be a fine deck. Like me and Andrew, the guy who beat me in top 8 with Geese in London, he came up with this thing where you basically play the old Sharod deck, like the Darkness deck, but then you use Gaulish D-Spoiler as your main ride, because it's basically a better Imperial Daughter in that sense. Because you get something from Soul, which can be like a heal, because you have been Soul charging early, or a Stride Fodder, like Wertiger Jaeger, or maybe a Baleful Repressor, something like that. So you can choose whatever the hell you want and get it to hand because of D-Spoiler, and then you also get a Protect Marker on top of that, and you just stride into Balam, use your Baleful, all that kind of good stuff you still have access to. So I thought that was a really good idea. And so I think if Enigmatic Assassin gets hit, DI will be a good deck, but it won't be tier 1 stuff like maybe Gold Paladin or an NLK or Angel Geese.
Right.
Let's see. Ghoulish D-Spoiler was on Ride, Counterblast, Soul Charge 2, return up to 1 grade 2 or less card from your soul to your hand. So, if you Soul Charged a lot in the early game there, that means that this is essentially a bigger sample size of Imperial Daughter.
Yeah, exactly. So usually you will, I don't know, if you charge a little bit, and he himself also charges, so you will probably get something like a heal or a Wertiger Jaeger. It's free, so...
Instead of being able to choose from 2 cards, you choose from, at the minimum, 5, because you have 0, 1, 2, and then whatever the 2 cards you soul charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
That is pretty cool. And it's nice to know that's a rare, so you can still do, it's budget, quote-unquote.
Yeah, it would be quite budget, because everything else in Dark Regulars is very cheap. Like, Enigmatic Assassins is hyped, so those are up. NLK is low because it sucks as in Standard. But everything else is really, really cheap in that deck.
I don't think the card itself sucks, it's that everything around it sucks. And
yes, exactly. Like, they can't get to 13 that reliably, or it takes a while, and by that time, it's like, who
They're
cares?
dead. Slow as molasses there.
I know this is mostly a discussion about Dark Regulars and Premium, but one of the, people were... when the DI cards were being spoiled for Standard originally, like people were like, once NLK was turned, everyone was immediately like, "Oh God, no, stop!" But like, I was definitely looking at the cards in Standard. I'm like, all these cards are really low quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you look at the cards and you're like, why would I want to put any of these cards in my deck? And I know that you had to do that in like the old Vanguard, but like if you look at a lot of the new cards, like sometimes you're playing cards you kind of don't want to play, but they're not like abysmal.
Yeah, like I've been testing standard Great Nature. Outside of the cats and barcode zebra, the rest of your stuff is very just there.
Yeah.
Like, all right,
I mean,
I have the brain and Geograph Giant and Silver Wolf, and it's fine. There's not really.
I feel like Geograph Giant is actually really good, but as you say, there is a lot of jank in that card pool.
Yeah, I have him as a 2 of, and then 2 of the 8K guy where if you hit, you Soul Blast draw.
Mm-hmm.
And then, meanwhile, over in Tangent Land. But it's just one of those things where it's just around. It will get replaced by stuff, but for now it'll be fine.
I mean, don't you dare say Hamsuke is bad though, or you will get an entire mob behind you.
Oh, you know what? Everyone can eat me. Hamstay is a waste of card space. I don't freaking care that he's triple R. Someone insinuated to me that the grade 3 might have been the origin rare. I'm like, don't you put that evil on me.
I think when Gwyn was shown, was that the origin rare for DI?
Yeah.
I was like, why does this card exist?
Why does it have to be 10 to get the retire? Just let him do the thing regardless, or 5 at the least, or most, I guess. Most
like
least cost.
like even if it were like some really low count, right? I don't even think that card's busted. I'm not even sure I'm
not saying it's busted, but it'd be nice to have just like an on call. You get a soul charge and you can kill something. That's good.
No, they wanted none of that.
Yeah, it would have been a fine card at least.
Yeah, it would have felt okay, but now but as it stands, you're like, what?
You know, the thing though with the jank in standard is also it's kind of setting up the fact that, hey guys, we're gonna print some really good high rarity stuff in your second wave of support, so get ready for a full bling deck, but with the same problems as G, where you still have to hunt for old cards.
Yep.
And we're already seeing that with like the new Alfred Monarch that requires King of Knights Alfred. At least that's what I'm hearing. So you will still need like 8 VRs or whatever, something stupid like that, which is basically the start of the thing people cried about in G.
Oh no, here it comes.
Please stop Bushiroad.
I mean, New Azel has the same issue. You're also still running
you have
the
to
old
use
one.
the old one.
Yeah.
Granted, in that case, they're 2 sets apart from each other, which is not that bad. Could be worse.
Everyone can just play more Akuma, which costs like $0.
I bought the deck in standard for $35.
That's a lot.
This is one of the top decks in the meta. $35 fucking dollars.
Yeah, but then Neo Nectar comes out and just shits all over you. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're still waiting on that promo though.
Uh-huh.
But as for now, okay, wait. So the prospective Monarch Sanctuary Alfred still is when you play Sun Van, choose up to 1 Blaster Blade in your drop zone, put it in your hand. If you put until the end of the turn, he gets plus 15k, and if you have a King of Knights Alfred in your soul, it gets a crit.
What?
Yep.
Not bad.
Is this like?
It's not great either.
Do I care?
What?
I'm just trying to decide if I care about this card. I think the answer is no.
If there's no other strill, this is very kind of medium.
Yeah.
And it would seem to be a pattern with Ravenhair Ezel, where if you have the old one in the soul, it gets 15k and a crit.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
I really don't like that.
I don't want to hear it all. Which means I'm going to need Zombaku and Soul for Zangeki?
Probably.
I mean, not even that. Like, even sure, it's a money thing, but it's also just very RNG added onto a format that's already quite sacky. So now you will be forced to write something specific, and after that, write something else specific. So I don't know. I really don't like such inconsistent support.
Me neither. Although in the case of Ezel, you can search that from deck. So
yeah,
that's true.
I think what's really important for standard decks right now is having multiple good rides at grade 3.
Yes.
And now we're just limiting what of those exist.
Yeah, you tell me. I play Grand Blue.
Buddy.
Ride Baskrick or lose, no problem.
Exactly. I mean, not even just ride Baskirk or lose. It's ride Romario, then ride Ruinshade, then ride Baskirk or lose.
Oh no.
I've ridden not Ruin Shade before and it's worked out okay. Just as long as you see it on that turn 2 somewhere,
I guess.
you're okay.
But I mean, if you listen to online communities, riding 3 specific cards after each other is apparently a 90%, because Hamsuke also happens 90% of the time.
Bullshit.
Man, it's pretty
No,
good.
I'm just shit posting a little now.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean,
That sounds like something somebody would say.
we got way the hell off topic, but that's okay. Let's see. Asked if Assassin should be hit.
So one thing I do want to ask is, let's pretend that we're in a world where Assassin is hit to presumably 1.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to assume that it's going to be hit to 0 in any meaningful way. Do you think that Geese will be problematic in such a world?
I think it gets beat by literally every deck that is competitive right now. Like Anj can do stuff against it, plenty of it. Luar too, Spikes can too. I think there's just I forgot Gold Paladin completely destroys them as well. So like, yes, Geese is kind of being gate kept out of the meta by NLK to a point where people don't take it and they would rather take NLK if they're very competitive. But so maybe Geese would come back into top tables, but I don't know. I don't think it really matters. Maybe Angel Geese is oppressive enough to change my mind, but I don't think so.
Well, the thing with Geese is that it's not one clan. It's Geese meshed in with whatever clan you want. So, you know, there's OT Geese, there's, I presume, if it happens, the Deer Chronicle stuff with Mystery Flare. There's what's it called? There's Genesis
Himiko?
Gize, Himiko. And then Luar Gize is a thing. So, and then also somebody did it with Mega Colony too. So like, you have multiple different variants of the same win condition, and also that Link Joker guy you mentioned.
Yeah, but they all have the same issue, which is no defensive triggers really opens them up to being rushed.
Yes. But that also means that the sample size, I think, gets skewed a little bit, where you can't really be like, oh, this clan got top. It's this Cray Elemental got top. How did it do it?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But on the other hand, there's only a handful of clans that can actually do it well. Like the Gear Chronicle stuff is a big meme.
Yeah, it is.
Luard Geese is a meme. The only valid decks, I would say, are OTT Geese, Angel Geese, Gradora Geese, and Himiko Geese.
I forgot about
and even
Himiko.
Yeah. But even Himiko Geese has like the glaring issue where it has no way to actually get to its ultimate stride cost, the grade 3. And then it can immediately get the 5 phase of Zeroths, but if you don't have your stride fodder, what are you going to do? And then also it doesn't have really much hand, I would say. We're also missing a very important pair of cards, promos, that help with hand building, I believe. I think it's 2 bears or 2 dogs or something that we didn't get, that Genesis got in Japan. So as long as we don't get those, Himiko Geese has even more issues.
All right.
I think more people are just into all right, cool, I can have my front rows have crits and then also bind 3 Zeroth Dragons.
Yeah.
I keep having to reread the skill every once in a while because the only person in my friend group here that wants to do it is, like, we're all kind of giving him shit for it, so I think he's, like, he's not afraid, but I'm getting the feeling he's like, I don't think I want to risk the friendship like that.
Wow.
Kind of. Well, we give each other shit. It happens.
So I
go
guess
ahead.
a good follow-up question to if you don't think Geese would be banned, I guess is the big takeaway there. Do you think there is a card that should be put on the ban list that we haven't discussed yet?
Okay, so I do think Giza should be banned for the health of like the fun, let's say, but it's not a competitive big issue. However, I do think Ellie should be put to 1 or Sandy should be put to 1. Basically something to stop Anj from having infinite gigantic Well, actually, perfect guards, but I guess I have to call it G guards.
Ellie
And
the G guard or Ellie the
the G guard.
yeah.
Yeah. So, like, Ange right now is being neutered quite a bit by its 5k triggers, but 1 week after the ban list, we get the new trial deck, meaning we will get an Ange with 10k shield grade 1s and new triggers. And I think from that point onwards, we can really expect Ange to be really, really good as, like, again.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, Bushi will probably just wait it out, but I don't think they should.
I see.
They still like Ange, got like top 3 in a lot of these premium blocks, and this is, like you said, without any plus 10k triggers or 10k shield grade 1s, which that says a lot for a deck that this got released pre-reboot, or like at the very end, right before the reboot, and then it's just kind of still around. Go home.
How is it doing in Japan right now? For
It
Andrew?
recently topped once, but I don't think Japan likes Bermuda that much, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. It doesn't do anything, even though it keeps stopping in the West, and now it just stopped once, from my memory.
Because Bushiroad will definitely prioritize Japan over us, so if it's not doing anything in Japan, there's a possibility they just ignore it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think the deck is oppressive. I just think it will scale too well with new support to a point where it may have to be looked at. Yeah.
You have a similar thing with Gear Chronicle. You're seeing that top every once in a while, but somehow that feels not as bad.
Yeah, because a lot of the new, like nothing of the new stuff is CTB, so there's no crossover whatsoever. Like even at the GBT 14 moment, we started seeing people run non-ZTBs inside CTB, like the Hard Temp Worker, like maybe one delayed Blazer, stuff like that. Some people, including me, even ran the History Maker in the Melon just for shits and giggles. But overall, the more of non-ZTB you push into that deck, the worse it gets. And it's also just Ange is a completely generic card, and everything in that deck is generic. Like Ellie doesn't say, oh, you have to be on this kind of Vanguard. Sandy doesn't say that. The 6-off PG doesn't say that. So none of this stuff is specific Vanguard reliant, whereas with ZTB it really is. A lot of cards are if you have a Chronojet Vanguard, meaning, I don't know. I don't think we can have the same problem with Gears.
Interesting.
Also, I think Gears' new mechanic in general just kind of is different enough from the old one.
Yeah, even counterproductive in a sense.
Why? Because you have to not stride to do this stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff like the grade 4, the new grade 4, really goes against what you may want to be doing, like striding to get to your heritage. Because essentially, ZTB around GBT 14 wasn't even that good if Heritage didn't exist. It's the fact that they could survive long enough and then Heritage giving you 2 turns where people couldn't do anything. And sure, Heritage didn't get power, didn't get crits, didn't get drive checks, but they had so many ways to multi-attack with Unicorn and with Sheep and so forth that compounded on Heritage was way too much. So now if you then don't stride, you have no real way of getting to Heritage really consistently, meaning you lose out on quite a bit.
I think also, at least in Premium, with the big hand sizes, but also just protect gifts in general make this a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah.
That might change later, but of the games I played against Gear Chronicle, it's not as scary as it used to be.
Yeah, because back in the day, like if they went into Gear next, you knew, damn, I need 2 PGs or at least 1 big G guard and a PG. But now having that protect on top of that, you're like okay, fine, doesn't really matter that much.
Oh, and then with Ange, second place in Malaysia and first place in New Jersey.
Oh, in Malaysia? I didn't know.
Yeah. It was, Malaysia, you had OTDZ, Ange, and OTDZ. Was a shocker.
Sounds like a fun tournament, man.
Are you? Question: are you gonna bring? I would ask what you were gonna bring to Worlds, but I'm guessing you want to keep it a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a public figure. You don't want to give away this stuff.
That's true.
I think I won't be bringing Turbo NLK because now people know, and I assume that the highest level players will, well, obviously look at what has been topping and prepare for all of that. So I think without the surprise factor, it's nowhere near as good of a deck.
Spoiler alert, he's going to show up with the NLK Turbo after saying he wasn't, and then it'll take everybody by surprise.
Damn, you saw through me.
Shit, I've blown his cover.
Damn, man, let's not air this.
So, anything else we want to add about Premium DI?
Yeah, I think a lot of people say like, oh, I don't want to play Premium because NLK is a thing. And I get where they're coming from. Obviously, like the Anaheim 5 out of 8 was ridiculous. But beyond that, it's not really game ending. Like fucking Azel bum rushes the shit out of it, which is not something people seem to know. Like I was reading Vanguardians a few days ago, and I saw people going like, oh, I'm going to build Premium Azel for the meme. I'm like, Premium Azel is one of the best decks in the format. How is it a meme? But people don't seem to know. For some reason, they don't look at Japanese results, or I don't know. But the deck
Vanguardians
really
is very slow to pick up on.
I don't know. I don't wanna talk shit on forums or something, especially when it has 25,000 people in it. So obviously you have a big like diversity of people. But for some reason, people don't know that Azel is an insanely good deck. And when I tell them, they're like, "What? Show me a list." I'm like, it has been topping almost every event.
Turns out being grade 3 when your opponent's grade 1 is pretty good.
Yeah, for some reason. I don't know why, but...
And with the new stride rules, you can do all that stuff. Also, and this has been a fantasy of mine, is Glorious Reigning Dragon when you have all those Excel circles.
Oh, yeah, it is really good. Especially because a lot of the cards you call from Glorious Reigning also call new cards by themselves. So even when Glorious Reigning only calls 2, if those 2 are Henrinus, Viviana, or Sagramore, you actually called 4.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so your first stride is Helios, and then your second stride is Glorious Reigning. And of that Glorious Reigning, you will not call 3. You will likely call a completely new field.
Wow. It's pretty good.
It really is, and people don't know for some reason, but they'll know once they see Worlds, I guess, unless it somehow isn't picked up. I don't know.
I mean, it took. Do you remember when Night Rose was the top deck, but everyone was buying gears, and Japan picked it up, and it took about a month and a half for the US to catch on.
Yeah, but I also think Nitros was the hardest deck to play that G format and before has ever seen. Like, not the floor, like it's pretty easy to play the basic moves, but to be able to go to 11 attacks in a turn consistently out of nowhere, you really had to know every single line of play really well to push that deck to its ceiling. So we saw people like Jamie Alvarez, if you know him, he also has this YouTube channel.
Commander yeah. He's been on this podcast before.
Yeah, and so you saw him topping with it consistently because he actually mastered that deck, and not many people can say that. So I think it was also just a thing of, yes, you had people entering with it, but just not knowing combos beyond, oh, my Negro Bone calls one more card.
Right. And I think another like small feature of that deck is like the way it can adjust when your opponent gets triggers on damage to be like, oh, now I'm going to change my line to this.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was just a really hard deck to play.
Do you think part of your success was due to having a win condition that remained largely unchanged based on the game?
You mean with NLK?
Yeah.
I mean, the deck literally doesn't care about what happens.
That's what I'm saying. Because like compared to something like Night Rose or something with a lot of decision trees, you have to be constantly alert because your chances to misplay are higher just by, the amount of moving parts. So with something like NLK where you just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, but on the flip side, I have seen people pilot a deck. Apparently, after France, like all of CFA was playing it, I've seen people pilot a deck and make very minor-looking moves that ended up making them not hit the loop, or they went for the loop maybe a turn too early. Because sometimes it didn't come up in France for some reason, but sometimes I was like, okay, this is not the moment for me to ride and try. I'm gonna sit on grade 2 one more turn. And like just little decisions like that, people fuck up and then they completely ruin it for some reason. So I feel like, yes, you have to be less alert than Nitros, absolutely. But there's still tiny decisions that completely change your game that people seem to fuck up for some reason.
Yeah, and that I think that comes a lot from not having the reps.
The reps? What do you mean?
just getting playing enough games with the deck.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I'm obviously then judging them on maybe playing the game the like the first 10 times or something. Obviously, then it's not completely ironed out.
But taking a deck you've played sub 10 times to a tournament is also a little sketch.
Yeah, that's true.
There's definitely a bad decision in there somewhere. Like,
oh yeah, but I haven't seen people take the deck like that deck to a tournament. I've only seen them play it in casual games, so I can't really judge.
Fair. Yeah, I think people do this thing where they complain about net decking in the year 2018. I'm not really sure why, which is completely fine, and I think you should in general, because a lot of times like you're going to be reinventing the wheel for a really long period of time, and it's just more efficient to net deck and then learn and make adjustments from there. But like,
yeah, I agree.
Even if you do net deck, which I'm encouraging here, you should play a lot of games with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the net decking debate is so interesting to me because on one hand, I get it. Like you say, you take a deck and then you start just changing stuff. But for some reason, both of my tops in this season on the 2 tournaments I attended were both decks that were literally me scrolling through Wiki and figuring stuff out, because I felt like if you take a deck that is already topping and you just, like you say, net deck, you are gonna assume that you run into someone with that deck or a very similar one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you then assume that both of you don't make a single misplay, the whole game is decided by RNG. Like you are assuming that you go to top tables and that you then face someone at your skill level. And since you both net decked topping lists, that means from that point onward, it is RNG. That's essentially why I didn't take Ange, because I feel like Kevin Agel's list is the best list and there is nothing you can innovate. Meaning if you take that, you will see other Ange players, you assume you're equally good, and from there it's RNG. So that's why...
Oh, go on. Sorry.
No, go on.
That's a lot of ifs, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, so I think the reason I think net decking is good, even despite these factors, is that you want a good basis for the decks that exist in the metagame. So you don't want to just like create a list like, oh, somebody said this Luard is good in premium. I'm going to make a random Luard list and pretend that this is the one that people are playing.
You should absolutely know exactly what lists people are running so you can learn from them. But I just feel like if you're gonna take a solved list, you are already giving into the fact that the mirror may end up being RNG. I know it's a lot of ifs, but like if you are on table 1 in round 7, you know your opponent knows their shit.
Yeah.
And they may be like in the way of you reaching top.
Yeah, I think I think this is a bit harder in Vanguard, but in Magic, like I don't like people net deck a lot, and there's always editing to do because as the metagame changes, there's a lot of small card decisions you make in Magic, and I think Vanguard has less of that.
Yeah,
but pool also.
I think the point when he said when he thought Kevin Agil's version of Ange was just the best Ange list possible, that there was nothing to innovate, is really important, because now you're saying that I can't even play the deck enough to a certain point where I feel like I can make a useful change that's going to like drastically impact anything, like like what happened with NLK, and so that it's not really worth spending the time to innovate.
I mean, I did spend the time, and because I played the deck, not as much as NLK, but I did play the deck at least 80 games or something like that, because I was planning on taking it to France, and I was just like, there is nothing I can change. The only thing I would change is the Honolys, because he put them in because he expected to face Proof in New Jersey, but then he didn't. And so like I don't think you should put Honolly in just because of spikes, because it's not a huge deck. And it also doesn't really do much to NLK, so
they can do less attacks at bigger numbers too.
Yeah, indeed,
so
and it's like
doesn't matter.
Especially because lots of spike lists now run the tier, meaning they have infinite CC anyway, so they don't care.
Yep.
I don't know. I know NLK, like people think it stops NLK, but since NLK can still do 6 Vanguard swings, Honolly is really not going to be the factor that changes everything, in my opinion.
Right.
So that's the only thing. But at the time where he made that meta call, it was absolutely the way to go. So it's pretty much solved.
A situation at the last, and this is incredibly off topic, situation at the last Magic Pro Tour where the best deck going in, everyone thought was this deck called Golgari, which basically the week before the Pro Tour had been kind of shut down by the other decks in the metagame. Like, people were developing decks that just had very good matchups against it, and people weren't doing it. We get to the Pro Tour, still like 22% of the metagame is Golgari, and they've all like shifted their decks around in a way to like, so it doesn't just auto lose to these other decks. This is really funny. And like the deck is, and like Golgari is like still one of the best decks in the format, despite the metagame kind of shifting around it, because it was able to shift back. And like, I think that's what I wish Vanguard would get to a point like that, but that requires having a lot of cards.
It's also just that the card quality of that deck is maybe so high that they can manage cutting some cards for things to counter, because the card quality of everything else is so high. Like, that's the thing with NLK as well. Like, I could go and say, I'm going to innovate Silver Thorns, but that doesn't mean I'm going to win France with it, because the card quality just isn't there. Whereas with NLK, I could cut stuff that other people ran, like War Tiger Jaeger, and put in the yellow bolts, because the NLK loop by itself and the Gwyn's and the Rootfin and the Tragics carry the loss of cutting those cards.
Right. Yeah, and I think Premium's getting to a card pool where hopefully we can see more of that. And I definitely heard rumblings of some kind of NLK list, but I haven't seen anything but it is very cool. It is unfortunate that it's not something you can play in the future.
Well, the thing is, that's also why I really like Premium. Essentially, I look towards Yu-Gi-Oh's competitive scene. I know people came to Vanguard because they hated Yu-Gi-Oh at some point because it's toxic or whatever the hell. But Yu-Gi-Oh's competitive scene is so much more developed. And so you have people like Patrick Hoban and Jeff Jones and so forth that just top every single event because you have that card pool, because you can get creative. And that's also why I'm so heavily towards Premium more so than Standard, because you do have the card pool. It's starting to get to a point where you can make an interesting choice that ends up making you top, because you don't have to take a solved list, because there are thousands of cards open to you. And that's not really the case with Standard, and that's why I dislike it.
At least in the case of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic versus Vanguard, Vanguard's been around for, I think, 7 years, 6 years, and Yu-Gi-Oh's been around 20, and Magic longer than that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I think eventually it'll get to this point, but yeah, Premium, I think a lot of the fun comes from the deck building, and Standard I enjoy at least like the little day-to-day minutia.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And that's not to say I enjoy one over the other, but I like them both for different reasons.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm not trying. I understand that I may sometimes come off as fuck Standard, but that's not the case. Like, I get that it's a fun experience, but it's more so from a competitive standpoint that I can't take it mega seriously yet, because the card pool just isn't there. And I know that will change. Like, new support will come out, the pool will broaden, you will start making actual choices and so forth, and then it will become like competitively interesting as well. But for now, I just can't yet. But I do enjoy both for different reasons.
Same here. Let's see. I'm kind of tapped out here about premium DI and premium in general.
If you want to move to standard, that's fine by me.
No, it wasn't so much that. It was like
I want to spend no more time talking about DI and standard. How about that?
that makes sense, especially because we basically did this twice. Hooray! Because it's my fault. I pulled the dad move where I hit record on the wrong thing on my desktop before we started recording, so it just recorded my voice and then white noise and then my voice again. I'm guessing it would be like that episode where I was just by myself and tried to mark marinate and it did not go well. But this is worse because it just seems really like I'm talking to nobody. What?
But big congrats to Maxime for winning France.
Thank you so much.
And we would love to have you back sometime in the future if you'd be willing.
Sure.
Yeah. So until next time, you can find us on Twitter or Instagram at Nexus at Night. You can find me at Atlas Novak.
Me at Wiggums.
Me at Plasma Eclipse.
And
me at Maxim Solemn. I should do that again.
What, on Twitter, Maxime Solemn?
Yeah, at Maxim Solemn.
And then, what about your channel?
YouTube.com/Solemn Vanguard.
There you go. I mean, you have 3,000 more followers or subscribers than us, so it doesn't matter. But still, the principle is there.
Players in real life who have found Solemn's channel, so people are actively looking for Vanguard channels, and so.
Oh yeah, no, I meet people at locals all the time who are like, I looked up Vanguard games and I got this guy Solemn Vanguard. Is he good? I'm like, yeah, he's fine. And then they looked also Nexus Core. I'm like, that's me.
That's fine.
I do know, however, that there's very little crossover between our audiences. Like, I noticed that a good chunk of people who really like you really hate me for some reason.
And vice versa?
Not vice versa, actually.
Huh. I'm guessing because half of the channel is the, Gabe, Jose, and Miles and Richard, where they kind of it's all the the nihilism and the kind of Rick and Morty, everything sucks.
Miles hates me, right? He's the guy who shit talked me on Reddit once.
I believe so. I am not entirely sure.
They are.
I follow you.
Bunch. I will say.
All I can say is Nexus Core is very stratified, to put it lightly. I'm just here doing this podcast and filming a game every once in a while, so...
We have the adults and we have the kids, so it goes.
Do we just...
Who did the Kagero... You had this Kagero premium deck profile that was all just someone who was close to suicide.
Probably...
That sounds like Jose.
Yes, it does. Let's see here. I forgot to watch that because it came up in my subscription, and then I got distracted and I forgot what it was. Let's see. Yeah, that's Jose. The Dungaree Matt. That's him.
The Dungaree thing.
Yeah, that was also fun. Where we went to a regional one time, and this guy had a binder full of Dungaree and his cross ride. Oh, and he had to sign it.
Good times.
Dungaree Limited.
Yeah, he had regular Dungaree and Dungaree Unlimited for the purpose of being autographed.
Dungaree was a bad card because you had to keep different bind piles for each Dungaree that you rode.
Oh, you did? Oh, right, because it was bound by this card.
Yeah.
Ugh, what a pain.
Dungaree, when was that? I don't think I played at that time.
BT12? Something like that? BT09, BT12?
I started on BT12 with Revengers, so...
okay.
I think it was earlier than that.
The cross-ride came out around that time. The actual Dungaree came out there.
The first one was BT08, and the cross-ride is BT12.
Oh, I see.
It was real bad.
Yeah, it was. Let's see. And then they had a starter to like try and help with it.
All right, but let's get out of here.
Yeah. Until next time, I'm Atlas.
I'm still Matt.
I'm Root Beer.
I'm Maxime.
And have a good night, everybody.